All right. Yeah. Have you? Yeah, we've recorded like this before once, right?
On Hangouts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
How do you and Keith do it when you have like a guest on?
So what we do, we have a guest on. We kind of are always FaceTiming. So we have FaceTime up and then we have Ringer going on in the background.
Oh, so it like records everything?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow,
the
cool.
FaceTime is on mute. So our audio is coming through the Ringer, and the FaceTime is just used to like just timing and stuff because it's easier to kind of do that when you're looking at each other.
Yeah, definitely.
So
And what do you guys do when you normally record?
that's what we do.
Oh, just like just the two of you?
Yep. And then if we have a
Okay.
guest, we just add the guest line into Ringer. That's
cool.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. It's this is what I've been. I mean, I think the audio quality takes a little bit of a hit when you record it this way because I end up converting this from like this is gonna save as like an MP4. Then I'm gonna convert it to an MP3, and then I'll just like put the audio, and then I'll just like upload it. So it actually makes editing easy, but because I don't really edit, I just put the audio in.
Right. Yeah, we have
right,
so many transitions and comedic shit going on in our pod that like Keith is, and I mean that's like his baby, right? So we've actually hired somebody to like specifically edit our pods.
Oh, beautiful! That's awesome.
Yeah, at the supervision of Keith. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. That'll be our first. Our next pod will be the first one that we have with like our own like editor or producer or whatever.
It's big time, dude. Look at you. How do you want me to intro you?
You can call me God of Piston Twitter, Master of Piston Twitter, Owner of Piston Twitter.
Do you want like any of the accolades, or do you want the or the?
Yeah, I want to hear the accolades.
Credits?
I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I just want you to kind of.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's just get into it then. This is Inside the Cylinder. I am joined by Shamik Mohile, the Zeus of Pistons Twitter, I would say. Like it's disruptive, right? Like it's not like you got to kind of get in the trenches a little bit every now and then, and
and I will strike you down. Yeah,
you will strike you down.
I have ended people on Twitter before, so.
And you might have a child out there somewhere.
That's true.
And you might be
Very
true. Who knows?
And I'm built like Zeus, so I don't know.
Damn, built like Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got Shamik here. Shamik, you want to give the people, I know the famed Two Gods and a Goose podcast, one of the co-hosts here. Do you want to give them a shout out where you can find your stuff and your work and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So after you're done listening to this pod, be sure to also subscribe, rate, and review to Two Gods and a Goose. That's my pod with Keith, Envious023. And you can find our pod on like the typical podcast places like iTunes, Stitcher. You can follow me on Twitter at ShamGod. And then you can also follow my new venture, which kind of started at the tail end of last year, which is Motor City Made, which is just like a Pistons blog that's not focused on like clickbaity articles and things like that. Just really good analysis. And it's kind of just a compilation of good writers from around like the Pistons Twitter. So no affiliation to Piston Power, Detroit Bad Boys, anything like that. Just good writing.
No slideshows, you're saying?
No slideshows.
No pop-up ads.
Nope. No pop-up ads. No slideshows. Just content.
So what we were just saying before we hit record, or what I was saying, is that the Pistons are in their usual January approaching February rut. They're currently, what are they, 5 games under 500, sitting at the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference. A couple big games coming up here. So I wanted to kind of get into just talk a little bit more about, I guess not necessarily the issues with the team from like a, I don't know, just from just kind of want to talk about it more from like a high level. And I think that high level, while it definitely starts at Stefanski and some of SVG's previous moves, I think the guy that's, definitely leading the charge right now, Dwayne Casey. I guess first and foremost, Shamik, what were your thoughts when they hired him originally? Were you pro Dwayne Casey? Were you kind of on the fence? I think you were one of the people that was, kind of big into the hopefully Pistons getting Budenholzer, but that clearly didn't happen. So I guess what were your thoughts of initially when Dwayne Casey was hired?
Yeah, I mean, Budenholzer was more of like a pipe dream. He was obviously my first choice, but that was a lot of teams' first choices. And I mean, look at what he's doing with the Bucks right now. He's taken Jason Kidd's leftovers and really just transformed them into like a true Eastern Conference contender. But I never really thought that was going to happen for the Pistons. Thought that was going to be out of left field. But I, at the time, wanted the Pistons to take a chance on a younger, like fresh mind. So Udoka was one of the names that was thrown around. That other Spurs assistant with the Italian name.
Yeah, wait, the one that wound up with he's with the Charlotte Hornets, right? The Hornets coach?
No, that's Borrego. There's another one too. His name is slipping me, but so he was another one that I was looking at too. But Ettore Messina.
Okay.
Messina, yeah. So those were the kind of coaches that I wanted, just something different that would have like a fresh perspective on what I thought was a pretty stale offense. But they went with Dwayne Casey, and I wasn't particularly thrilled at the time with the hire, but he was coming off of a coach of the year. He's good with players. He's good at getting the best out of them culturally and in the locker room and whatnot. And I remember when the details of the interview process kind of took place that Dwayne Casey had said that he was going to kind of provide like a fresh offense, like a fresh perspective on coaching in his next gig, which was going to be with us. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what he's going to do. And I think so far he's been kind of the same Casey that he was in Toronto, which it's not bad, but it's not fresh and it's not intuitive, which is kind of what I was expecting from the next coach.
Were you, before even the SVG being fired news went down, is this something where did you want SVG back for one more year? Or were you kind of past that train at that point?
I did want him back for one more year, but I did understand letting him go.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same perspective. I had the same perspective. I mean, I thought he kind of earned one more shot to see if he could make the whole Blake thing work. But at the same time, when they made the move to let him go, not necessarily surprised. And now when you look at the NBA landscape, there are 0 coaches and presidents of basketball operations left.
Isn't Pop still one?
Yeah, but isn't he kind of like secretly like? He secretly is, but he's not technically, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah.
But when it comes to there was a time when there was 4, I think, going at the same time with SVG, Budenholzer, Doc, and Tibbs, and now Tibbs recently was let go. So yeah, I definitely understood it. I guess one thing that Dwayne Casey did mention when he was hired, kind of when you going back to what you were saying, Shamik, about the offensive look, what it's going to look like, what their sort of shot spectrum is going to look like. He mentioned that it's going to be a very heavy dosage of 3-point shots, and also, as many shots close to the rim as possible, kind of get away from the sort of mid-range game that the Pistons sort of found themselves in over the past couple of years. He has stuck true to that spectrum.
That's true.
And, so they are still one of the top leading 3-point shooting, or not percentages, but attempts per game. I think they're 3rd or 4th in the league right now. Is this something where, that is the modern offense, that what you're seeing from a lot of NBA teams? Mm-hmm. For you, do you think that he needs to kind of adjust that sort of spectrum? Does he need to kind of more fit towards his players? Or is this something where it's like you're not really going to see the best out of this Pistons team until the players start to match what it is that he's looking to put out there from like an offensive product?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. If the same plays that are being run to kind of open up these shooters, and they're getting good looks, but they're missing them. So what do you do as a coach? You need to think about what you're doing. You need to adjust, right? If your shooters are not hitting, like at the beginning of the season, our only shooter that was shooting well was, like, I think at the time, like Blake Griffin was our best 3-point shooter. And now the other shooters have kind of come up and kind of progressed back to their own means. But at the time when the offense was really, really struggling to even hit any shots, I would have liked to see a little bit more creativity to go with what's been working. So maybe throw in some more pick and rolls with Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, and use Blake as a spot up guy if he was shooting so well from 3. Just something different. But I feel like it was the same song. It was Blake Griffin in the post until they double or triple or quadruple, and then you kick it out to an open shooter who gets a good look, but they missed. So it's not all on Casey, but at the same time, his lack of adjustment is on Casey.
Sure. And I guess just from some perspective on that, right now the Pistons are the 8th best team at generating wide open looks, which means a defender is 6+ feet away. They're 7th best at generating wide open looks from 3. And then when you adjust it to like open looks, which is 4 to 6 feet is your closest defender, Detroit actually ranks 5th in generating those looks from beyond the arc. So, that's what I was saying. It's like you kind of are getting the promise that, or at least what you expected from Dwayne Casey, what he was preaching when it comes from 3. I guess the ugly side of that is more so really kind of their 2-point looks, because they're not getting many clean looks at the basket. They're not getting layups like they're allowing. They're going to a lot of heavy post ups with Blake and Andre. So is that something that, I think a lot of people want to take Andre off the block, and they want him to be that rim runner and that type of guy that's going to feast off offensive boards. But we've been saying that as like a Pistons community for 3 years now. Is it something to you where it's like, you can say it all day long, but maybe that's just not something that Dre wants to do, or that he feels like he's going to be doing, that kind of takes away from him as a traditional big man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even really sure if it's his fault, because when you play with Blake Griffin and Blake is primarily in the post, what is Andre Drummond supposed to do? Where is he supposed to stand? He's not a 3-point threat as much as people in the summer wanted him to be. That's another story, though, and I'm so glad that phase is over with. But
that step back, though, he hit against Toronto. Was that Toronto?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was a Toronto game, I believe.
Yeah, like that, but that was dumb.
It was wet, though.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, but like, what are you supposed to do? You're the league's best rebounder. You in the past 3, 4, 5 years. So what do you do? I mean, you let Blake work in the post, and then when that's not working, he either puts up a shot and Andre Drummond cleans it up, or he dishes it out to a shooter, and then Andre Drummond fights for position. And when those two options aren't there isn't really anybody else to create any offense. So the ball finds itself with Andre in the post, and he runs those dribble handoffs and whatever, but they know that Andre Drummond isn't really that much of a post threat, so that defender always goes on that shooter, sticks to the shooter, leading to an Andre Drummond post-up, which, as we know, isn't really all that efficient or great of a shot. So it's just, what do you do at this point? And this kind of falls on Casey, because it's kind of putting him in a position to fail. And I wish that they would stagger them, but then you have the problem of who's going to be that 4 that runs with Andre Drummond that fits with him. So it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, either you have both of them on the floor and you get what you get, or you take one off, and then you're kind of screwed with Andre Drummond and a cast of characters.
Yeah, and that's those are kind of scary lineups too that you see sometimes when you see, just some bench players and Andre. Even sometimes when it's like the bench Andre and Reggie, it doesn't seem like they're really producing too much at a high level. I don't have it the 5-man lineups pulled up in front of me, but it's one of those things where it's like, oh God, who's going to score on this roster? Like they're going to be out there for 5 minutes. Who's going to get a bucket? And that to me really comes back to kind of my whole philosophy about the whole Casey question, I guess you could say, is I think it's really hard for me to truly grade him right now as a coach for this particular team, not in his career, just because of the roster. To me, I've kind of been harping about this. You look at the guys that he has, especially when you talk about the bench. You're looking at Galloway getting minutes, Lure, Zaza, who's been, hit or miss at certain games, GR3, who signed and is really not that effective. Yeah, he's been truly terrible.
They really needed him to be good, because that would have been having that wing shooter, and if he shot even 35% from 3 and was consistent at that would have been such a big help. But he's just been terrible, unplayable.
Yeah, and I think that this is something for me where as much as I want to scream at the coach at times, and I want to, kind of take my frustrations out about what I'm seeing, I think that the hard realization here is that the roster is just inherently flawed, in my opinion. And I don't think until some big waves get moved, or some big waves happen and things shake up, or the money falls off the books, then you're really going to be able to see what Dwayne Casey's actually capable of doing. Maybe because he is, as you said, Shamik, not the most innovative offensive mind. He kind of has his plan and he's sticking to it, which can be a knock against him for sure. But I just think that this is something where you kind of have to wait it out, unfortunately, or you got to make some big moves happen here soon if that's going to be the route that you want to go.
Yeah, just real quick, going back to the whole how the Pistons do when one of the bigs is off. So the Pistons stats, while Andre Drummond is on the court and Blake Griffin is also on the court, they have an offensive rating of 108.3. That's pretty good.
Solid.
Yeah, like a positive net rating as well. When you take Blake Griffin off the court and you have Andre Drummond on the court, the Pistons have an offensive rating of 92.4.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah. So the offense, and that's just a problem. Like, who do you put around Andre Drummond to maximize his potential on the floor? You need to have a guy like Reggie Jackson as point guard. Jose Calderon isn't going to really work in that situation, and neither will Ish Smith to a certain extent in half-court sets. So what do you do to maximize Andre Drummond? And unfortunately, I think the problem, it's not because of him. I think he has room to grow as a player. I think he's a good player. I just don't know if he fits.
Okay, I agree. To be completely honest, and I think if you have to choose one or the other, I'm taking Blake Griffin all day personally.
Well, there really is no choice anymore because we're kind of in this bed and we have to kind of sleep in it and then figure out a way to maximize Blake Griffin while he's here. So
I completely agree. So let's change topics here. And I think one of the biggest buzzes that's been circulating around NBA Twitter in totality, but also specifically kind of honed in on our little slice of hell, Pistons Twitter, is the trade rumors that have been circulating regarding one Dennis Smith Jr. top 10 pick from last year's lottery on the Dallas Mavericks. I guess, just for some stats about Dennis Smith Jr., he's averaging 12.6 points per game right now. 3.9 assists, a scary 3.1 turnovers to 3.9 assists. That is pretty awful. 44% from the field, not great. 37.5 from three, not too bad. And a 53% true shooting percentage. I guess, Shamik, I'm just going to be completely honest here. I haven't watched a ton of, Dennis Smith Jr. in the past, year. So I don't know if you have, but what are your thoughts, I guess, just from hearing the Dennis Smith Jr. trade rumors?
Honestly, I think it's a fit, but the problem that is going on in Dallas right now is that it's the Luka Doncic. It's a Luka Doncic show, and Dennis Smith Jr. has to find a role around him, and so the role right now is being a spot-up shooter, and he's not particularly great at that. So bring him onto the Pistons, and I think the same problems are still valid. But he's a healthier version of what Reggie was supposed to be, and he's a young player under team control, so you have more flexibility with that. So I like him. I wouldn't break the bank for him.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, some of the knocks against him is, when I was kind of doing some research just about what people think about him in and around Dallas, they called him, inefficient shooter. He is undersized. They said that he's been disinterested on the defensive side of the floor. A poor decision maker, which, that 3.1 turnovers to 3.9 assists can be, can definitely testify to that. And then he does have that injury history. I think he had a back injury, which can be pretty scary for, because the backs, as Hannibal Buress said, is most of your body. Right. I looked up his true shooting percentage. He ranked 70th of all guards who average more than 20 minutes per game, which is actually still ahead of Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith. Well,
I'm not saying those two are the pillar of success, but it's not great when you look at the big picture.
Yeah, so right now you're kind of in the boat of all right, you're not gonna be doing too much to acquire a Dennis Smith Jr. Is there any type of sort of A/B trade that you can see with the Pistons right now that would be something that you would find attractive to go after, or is it? I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think the Pistons should be in play for any all-star or that level player who is available. Bradley Beal, Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler. They should at least throw their hat in the ring for whatever they can. Now, the other problem is I don't know if their chips are enough compared to other teams and what they can offer. That's a different story. But they should at least try and put out as much as possible. They should be willing to part with their first-round pick.
Okay, whoa.
For the right player. If it can net you someone like Kemba Walker or Bradley Beal, I think it's perfectly reasonable to give up that first-round pick for that immediate success.
Okay, so you're not necessarily in the position right now of going after one of these sort of miscasted guards like a Markelle Fultz or Dennis Smith Jr. You're more eyeing like a whale if the Pistons are going to make a move.
Well, they should also, I mean, I kind of both. Like I would like them to go after some project and like potential boom or bust risky player like that, because you never know, they could come to Detroit and then figure it out. We've seen it with other young players before. So it's in the realm of possibilities, but at the same time, like I don't want to destroy the, like, for example, if it's going to cost me like Luke Kennard in a first, I don't know if I want to do that, you know?
No, I think that would be a pretty bad trade. You know,
Right.
He'd really have to knock the ball out of the park if they're going to be making a move like that.
Right.
But yeah, that would be a money trade. That would probably work out right there in the books.
And in either situation with Dennis Smith Jr. or with Markelle Fultz, they're not going to help for this season. So you're going to bank on them for next season and beyond. And then in that case, do you truly believe in their long-term potential on this roster? I don't know. That's worthy of a discussion.
I think that brings us pretty seamlessly, honestly, to the next topic I want to discuss a little bit. You mentioned it. You know, if you are bringing on one of those guys, especially a Markelle Fultz, you know, he's a guy that you got to be concerned about his shooting form. You got to be concerned about his health. It's the same with Dennis Smith Jr. because he is currently sitting. I don't know if he's sitting out because he's just
sick.
Yeah, he's quote unquote sick. So, but still, yeah, I think with both of those guys, you're kind of hitting the refresh button if you're bringing them in, because you really have to give them the keys, or at least, you know, a good amount of playing time to see what they have. So I guess that brings us to tank or not to tank type of question. And also there's the what did I call it, Shamik?
The natural tank. The
natural tank, which is just the Pistons. So right now, Detroit is currently 9th in the Eastern Conference. They're 2.5 games back from the 6th seed. They're also 1.5 games ahead of the 11th place Wizards. And just a little nugget here that I looked up today, they actually have the 5th easiest strength of schedule remaining, and their opponents only boast a 48% winning percentage. So Shamik, right now you're in the meeting room with Stefanski and Gores. What are you doing with this Pistons team moving forward?
I think you still try and snag a playoff spot because it's still within reach. The Pistons, they've had a tough month and a half, but December was unprecedented in terms of injuries and the opponents that they faced. And then right now they've been on this West Coast trip. So these were more likely than not L's anyways, you know? So now when they've, like, you know, they got that win against the Magic and they've gotten healthier. So now I think it's important to kind of come back to reality here. I think in the beginning of the season, we were like, wow, we were all high on them. And then we needed a reality check back then that, hey, maybe we're not that good. And then now we need kind of like the reverse. Like, hey, we're actually not that bad, you know?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to see so many L's in December and January, but it was ridiculously hard schedule. And they lost some important pieces. So I still think that they should make, if a trade is there, make a trade to improve the roster. But I think tanking is easier said than done because you need two teams to kind of be on the same mindset. Because, yeah, you can say tank and start losing games, start playing younger players, but you're really only improving that year's odds at the lottery, and it's really not going to improve all that much with the new CBA and the new lottery rules anyway. So the goal and the idea behind tanking is to acquire future assets in bulk, and bring on bad contracts in return. And the Pistons cap sheet doesn't allow them to bring on bad contracts because they have a lot of them. And then two, they really can't acquire assets because they have nothing that other teams really want. So it's easier said than done. I know a lot of 97-1 people like to say, "Oh, we should tank," and whatever. There's a certain radio personality out there, rhymes with Schmike Valenti, who wants them to tank, and it's easy to throw the word out there and then get like angry callers to kind of call in and say this these words, but it's a lot harder to put into practice, especially when you look at the financials.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think one thing with this particular, I guess where they're at in the season, they're still pretty healthily have a healthy lead above some of those worser teams. You're looking at the Bulls, the Knicks, and the Phoenix Suns. And right now they're projected to pick 9th per tankathon. And supposedly, I don't know a ton about the NCAA crop right now, but it's supposed to be a pretty top-heavy draft. Right. And I guess I actually had this question kind of embedded in there, but you already answered it. I was going to ask if you would trade a first-round pick for a player that helps Detroit make a push for the playoffs. Let's drop it down a level of player from what you were saying, like the Kemba, the Bradley Beals of the world. Mm-hmm. Let's drop it down to like that second tier, like a Harrison Barnes or an Otto Porter. Would those be the types of players that you'd be willing to, possibly move maybe one of your young guys on the roster now, plus a future first-round pick for that type of player to help Detroit make a push? Where do you sit with that?
I just not really. I've never really been a Harrison Barnes nor an Otto Porter fan, so I would say no to that. But if it brought a shooter in, like a wing shooter of that caliber, like Trevor Ariza was a good candidate back when he was, floated in the trade circles. I thought he was worthy of a first round pick because he would have stepped in and become immediately the Pistons' best wing player, both on both ends. And I think the Pistons could have gotten out from a bad contract as well, in return for giving up a first. So I thought that was a reasonable trade. George Hill was another option because I don't think that they necessarily need a more talented point guard. I think they need a better fitting point guard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't need to hit like a straight up home run because, I think the realization, and even within like the Pistons community, like the Kemba Walker name, it's not being thrown around like it was over the past couple of years. I think it's really finally setting in with people where it's like, you don't necessarily have the mustard to kind of make the sandwich, to be honest. So, no, I definitely agree with that. I'm also under the impression that I don't think the Pistons should be looking to move a first round pick for that second tier quality type of player, just because I still think you get smashed by the Raptors or the Bucks in the first round. And then you're sitting on some more long-term money with an Otto Porter and I'm not necessarily sure in a Harrison Barnes. I'm not sure when his contract is up, but you still have
they're making a lot of money.
Yeah, they're making a lot of money in now. So, so I don't think that really truly raises the ceiling enough for Detroit to be in the business of shipping out first round picks.
Right. But at the same time, if they do use that first round pick and bring in a guy like that and say that guy wins even a few playoff games for the Pistons, that is an improvement over a decade's worth of Pistons, Like the last playoff win they've had is, I want to say like 08, 07.
Goodness gracious.
So, I mean, even that is an improvement over what has been going on for the past decade. And that's another discussion about like expectations, right? Like this team, even with Blake Griffin at full strength, with better fitting point guards, better fitting pieces, they're still not going to be a top 4 seed. They're not going to be a top 5 seed. They were always going to be at best a 6 seed, maybe a 5 seed, and maybe make a playoff series competitive and then lose. That's kind of what everybody should be expecting from them.
Yeah, that's what I was going in. I kind of had them at like the ceiling as like the 6th seed. You might steal a round if you somehow get a favorable matchup, but other than that,
something,
something freak happens. No, I completely agree. And I think one thing that Pistons fans should start to maybe come to grips with here. I don't know if that first round pick is going to be staying with Detroit this year, to be honest. Like via what's been circulating from media outlets, Detroit might get, really want to make that playoff spot, and I could see them making a move, especially if they're scouts or they're just kind of buying the juice that this year's draft just isn't that good. They might be looking to kind of part from that, which might be hard for some Pistons fans to handle, but I think that that's a very, very realistic type of situation here.
Yeah. Which I think is fair. It's a fair thing to be worried about, and I think it's also a fair thing to give up to make a playoff spot.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, if and when that does happen, what the return looks like, and see the basketball from there. But before we get into a whale of a discussion here, I just want to take a quick break for our sponsor. So be right back. All right, this is going well.
Nice.
I can edit all this out, obviously.
Cool.
All right, I'm about to bring us back then.
Cool.
Because
commercial's over. Okay.
Commercial is over. So speaking of trades, this was over a week ago now. This was probably about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks ago, where the big Steve Hinson, Andre Drummond trade, article had come out that it was time for the Detroit Pistons to move on from the Andre Drummond era. Shamik, yes or no? Are you making that trade? I know it depends on the package, but like just in general, from would you prefer to have Andre Drummond on this team, or would you prefer to have a package that you could kind of handle?
Let me preface this by saying I do like Andre Drummond. I am a fan of him as a player, as a person, even as a musician. I like him. And
actually, the album's not as bad as the
it's
people.
Not bad. Yeah, it's
really
not
isn't
bad at all.
We're gonna get some shade for this, but I listened to it. I was like,
yeah, it's not bad at all. But
no, it's
yeah,
not.
so I like him. I like what he's done for the city. I think he's a great person. But at the same time, this is Blake Griffin's team, and we brought up that stat earlier, minus 16.2 when Blake is off and Andre is on, and that's just a product of this team solely being built around Blake Griffin. And I think they could work. I don't think it's going to work under this regime. And in that case, I would be open to a trade if it brought back significant talent, significant immediate talent, either at the wing or at guard. So I would be okay with the trade. I do not want to ship him off for a first-round pick. That makes no sense.
To acquire a first-round pick.
Yeah, this should not be a move to acquire future assets, because that doesn't make any sense, because the goal of this team right now and as constructed is to win now.
Okay.
So if it brings in a player that could help you do just that, I'm for it. If not, forget about it.
Okay, so because there is a particular sect out there of people who truly do believe that it's addition by subtraction. So even if you just bring back dollars that match, just getting rid of Andre will make this team inherently better. Just with the lack of him being here. You're not there.
No, I'm not there.
Okay. I'm not there either.
Right. If you trade him, you need to get something back that is either better fitting or more talented than what's currently on the roster.
Okay, well, you're going to destroy some of these trades that because I have some trades lined up for Shamik that I just want him to rate and review. So I'm going to go into this first one.
Okay.
So Drummond to the Charlotte Hornets for Frank Kaminsky, Nicholas Batum, and a first-round pick.
Yuck.
All right.
Terrible.
That's bad. It's pretty bad.
Oh, man.
But in the defense of the construction, Batum has been a shooter at times. He can get hot. He can space the floor. His contract is garbage, but this would really be, hey, you can get an asset, and this is kind of an addition by subtraction type of move. But you're not there.
I'm not there, but I do like the idea of Kemba Walker and Drummond together.
Yeah, I think they would look great.
Yeah. I'd love that here, but we're not going to get that in your proposal.
Okay. Now, yeah, I'm not. None of those guys are on this, by the way. Okay, so there's none of the. All right. So here's another one. Drummond plus Galloway plus GR3 to Chicago for Jabari Parker and Robin Lopez. Now, mind you, both Jabari Parker and Robin Lopez's contracts are expiring at the end of this year. Jabari Parker has a team option, $20 million, which will obviously be declined. What do you say?
Did you say it was just Jabari and Robin Lopez, or was there
just Jabari and Robin? So Robin's now your starting center, and Jabari's probably coming off the bench.
So this is a little bit more interesting compared to the other one because it frees up so much space that then the Pistons can turn around and make another trade right away. So they can trade Drummond over there, and then I would really push for a pick in that, maybe like a second even. But they can then package that whatever pick they get back plus maybe their own and have enough flexibility to acquire somebody who's pretty good.
Okay. So plus a second round pick, you're pulling that trigger?
I think I would, just because it clears that much room.
Yeah. And also one thing to note about clearing room, if you were to ask literally 10 out of 10 people that watch this team and cover this team, if the Pistons are going to be able to re-sign Reggie Bullock at the end of this year as currently constructed, the answer is frankly clearly a no, because they'll go into the luxury tax, easily if they were to make that move. Mm-hmm. With losing out on Drummond's contract, you now have space to re-sign a Reggie Bullock, which is, one Pistons writer at Detroit Bad Boys has called Reggie Bullock Detroit's second best player this season, and I think that there's I can understand that line of thinking. So just one thing I want to note about getting off of money.
Yeah. And also you get the Jabari Parker experiment for half a year for pretty much for free. Because if it doesn't work out, you just decline the option and that's it, Exactly.
And you got to think you're getting off of Galloway's future contract for next season. And GR3 was on a team option too. So I wouldn't see that being picked up either. Right. All right.
But so the Jabari Parker experiment interests me. It interests me enough to want to do it.
I know Bulls fans hate him, so it kind of scares me. But at the same time, I think that I would pick that up. I think I like Robin Lopez as a player, especially if you can get a pick out of this. And I'm kind of in the mindset of I would really like to re-sign Reggie Bullock at this point.
And honestly, Robin Lopez is the kind of center that, like, Drummond is of course better, much better, and will always be better. But Robin Lopez is the kind of center that's like solid and would do fine if there was enough talent elsewhere.
He could hit a 14-footer. That's big. That's something that would help out Blake a lot.
Right.
And he knows his role. He's not the type of guy that's going to bring the ball up every damn time down the court and then set the shot clock or, set the Pistons offense up with 14 seconds remaining.
And he's a veteran. And he's won before. So, I like that trade more than the other one.
Okay. Here's another one for you. Drummond to Dallas for DeAndre Jordan and Dennis Smith Jr.
Just Drummond?
Just Drummond.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds too heavy to you, like too Detroit favorable, in my opinion, the reason why I think Dallas might pull that trigger is that they've been wanting to get their sort of all-star big man since DeAndre Jordan Gate, from 4 years ago. Drummond is younger. He's 25 years old. They have him under contract. He might pair well next to, if you could get him to buy in to maybe being that rim runner. He might be that freakish Capella-like type of guy that you could put next to Doncic. So I'm just throwing that out there.
The only thing, I know it's been reported that Dallas wants to get rid of Wes Matthews, and I like him. I think he would fit on this roster. So I would be willing to amend that trade. If they threw in someone like Wes Matthews and we made salaries work, threw in Lure and GR3 maybe, I don't know what would work, but that would be an interesting trade for me. I think straight up, it's just not enough on both sides. It's just kind of underwhelming on both sides.
Okay. Just another note there, DeAndre Jordan's contract does expire at the end of the year too, so it would kind of open up that cap space again. That's a trade that I would do right now, just putting that out there. All right. Now this one, I don't know if you're going to like this one. Drummond and a lottery protected first round pick to Cleveland for Kevin Love. The money is bad. This is a desperation type of move, but Love should be ready to play by mid-February from the reports that I was reading today.
So Vince Ellis has famously coined the term conga line, when describing the way guards find their way to the rim. And he said the only thing that kind of stops the conga line is the presence of Zaza or Drummond. And when Zaza was hurt and Drummond was off, it was a quote unquote conga line to the rim. So if you trade Drummond in this situation and you get Kevin Love and Blake Griffin as your starters, the conga line is all the time because both of those dudes are not protecting the rim even a little bit. And the current guard situation isn't really stopping anybody either. So this would be like one of those games where James Harden gets like a bazillion free throws at and gets 100 shots at the rim and drops 60 on like one 3-pointer, like one 3-point attempt or something like that. Just it would be bad.
Yeah, it would be bad. Okay, we can scrap that one. I think the dancing
money is horrible too. So
yeah, the money's really bad. I just wanted he's been talked about a little bit, so I thought I'd give that one a look.
Yeah. Now, if we didn't have Blake Griffin, that would be interesting because I think that was the kind of player that fit around Drummond at the time. But now it kind of changes everything when Blake's here. So
true. And if you're going to have one guy with that much money left on their deal, you might as well have the guy that's playing at an all-star level, that's healthy in Blake Griffin than Kevin Love. Right. All right. Well, this is my last question, and we're done with trades. Is there any trade out there that you had in your mind that you wanted to push into the airwaves, make come real?
Sure. And I don't know what the specifics would be, and maybe more on each side would have to be added, but I think a trade centered around Andre Drummond and CJ McCollum makes a lot of sense.
That's one of the ones that's been, I think that's like, it's not as strong as the Kemba wave, but that's one that's kind of tattooed on, the minds of Pistons fans is that the CJ McCollum. I would love it too. I think the problem there would be that they've already paid Nurkic, and he's kind of their big man that they're kind of going with right now. So I don't know if they're and they also drafted Collinson. So I don't know if they're looking to pick up an Andre Drummond at this point, but I would love CJ.
Or the Pistons could very well return. Okay, this is a very hot one, and you can destroy it if you think it's terrible. But a trade centered around like Drummond, a first-round pick, and possibly Luke Kennard for Porzingis. Return Drummond to New York, where he calls home. Porzingis is a great player to pair next to Blake Griffin, and he can shoot.
I mean, I love Kristaps Porzingis. If you can guarantee me that man's going to be healthy, then I would do that all day because I'm a huge Kristaps fan.
Is that too much to give up for him, though?
I don't think so. It's all about the injury, right? Like that's if he plays, then no. Like that's highway robbery in my opinion. If you are able to get a Kristaps, he's that good, and it's kind of a shame because I can't even remember the last time I watched a Kristaps game. It feels like it's been 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So no, I would do that as well. But I think it would have to depend on that health. But I think that's a move that you might be having, that you would have to make if that was something that they were going to offer.
Yeah, and like Detroit might have to take back some bad contracts and whatever, but I think it's reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know if they would want to make that move, but who knows? Swing for the fences.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my last question though. So, which player most likely to change uniforms come the trade deadline on the Pistons? That's not going to be a Piston after the trade deadline. Stanley Johnson? Yeah, which one's most likely to be traded?
Okay, all right.
I said it in a stupid way. Stanley Johnson, Reggie Bullock, Andre Drummond, or Ish Smith?
Do I have to rank them, or do you want me to go?
No, you can just tell me who you think's the most likely to be traded.
Well, I think this is easy. If they do end up making a trade, the guy that makes the most sense for other teams is Reggie Bullock. $2.5 million deal right now. He is eligible for, he's a free agent this summer, but I think teams are looking to contend that need shooting at that size. I think he's like 6'7" or 6'8" or something like that. I think that is a valuable asset to have for a contending team that is in need of shooting. Maybe OKC, maybe the Rockets, because they always need shooting.
I agree. Yeah. The one thing I'll say about that though, if the Pistons, I think I was going to say that earlier, like that. I think that the Pistons would be looking. I think he's definitely the easiest to move. He's definitely the most valuable, frankly, the most valuable asset that the Pistons have, especially to one of those contending teams, other than like all their future first round picks and whatnot. The issue that I have with it in that if you would have asked me last week if I think that Reggie Bullock's going to be on this team, I would say no. I think after looking at the standings a little bit more, looking at the Pistons' strength of schedule, and just my general understanding of what Tom Gore's mindset might be in making the damn playoffs, if you trade Reggie Bullock away, like you're not going to get a better shooter in return. You're not going to get a guy that's as crucial to this team as he is, from anyone, essentially. So I just think that they're going to hold on to him strictly because he's essentially, if you take him off the team and you don't get back someone of a crazy, crazy good quality, then you're not going to be making the playoffs. So I don't think that he's going to be the guy that gets moved, even though I used to think that.
Right, but it's also what other teams want, and I don't think. I mean, Ish Smith is intriguing to other teams because he's an expiring and he plays point guard and he has experience being a backup point guard and he's pretty decent at it. So he's intriguing as well. I don't think teams really want Stanley Johnson. I think most people are kind of out on him at this point. And then who was the last one you said? Andre Drummond. That's a difficult contract to move and difficult player to move. That's why I thought Reggie Bullock would make the most sense. Now, David, do you think they're going to make a trade in your deep down in your heart? Do you think if we talk February 7th or whenever the trade deadline is, will the Pistons have made a trade or not?
I 1000% think they're going to make a trade. I think Stanley Johnson's out the door, to be honest. And even if it's literally asset collection, even if it's a journeyman that you get back that you might play, might not play in a second round pick, I just don't see him re-signing in Detroit. And I could see a team wanting to take a flyer on him for the same reasons that it's always been speculated that teams want to take a flyer on him. No, I'm not saying that Bullock won't be traded. I'm not saying that, that any of these guys might not be traded. But the Pistons make trades. That's one thing that happens. Over the past few years, the Pistons have been very active on the trade market. So I honestly don't see any reason for them not to be, because you have to go in a direction. I don't think the self-tank, like we described earlier, is what they're going to try to do. I think they're either going to try to get one of these young guards, Dennis Smith Jr., Markelle Fultz, and build towards the future. And that's more of like an almost actual tank. Or they're going to try to make the playoffs right now, and then you might be seeing, some other guys get moved. So I think Detroit's definitely making a trade. What do you think?
If you were to ask me today, I would probably say no, because thinking of the way like the Pistons have been, like they've been hit with injuries hard for the past month and a half, and now that they're kind of at full strength, they're now 1-1 since Ish came back.
Don't ever drop 1-1.
Oh, they're 1-1. I mean, if you think about it, though, like Ish's first game back in Utah in altitude, that's kind of tough to play. And
I don't know what he was doing in the fourth quarter, playing every single minute, but that's a different discussion.
Exactly.
That's Casey. We actually already discussed.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's on Casey.
But here's my hot take. I don't think they make a move. One, because they see people are coming back and the team is noticeably better. Even if they take an L in Utah, the team did look better. And even more so against Orlando with Zaza back. I don't think they make a move because right now this regime can point to Stan Van Gundy as a scapegoat as to why this season didn't turn out the way they had planned. Because this is Stan Van Gundy's team and just different people running it. So right now they can say, hey, you know what? The season didn't turn out as planned, but it's primarily Stan Van Gundy's roster. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to make some drastic changes this offseason, and this will be our team. So in a sense, it kind of buys them an extra year.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Now, it's now their bed, and they'll have to sleep in it.
And they have, they've been they've had to be pretty conservative just based on the cap situation, obviously. Right. But I guess if you have any hope, and I know a lot of people are scared about Stefanski running this team and, Gore's watching highlight videos and then deciding to make, trades or something, is the fact that they did hit on a couple guys in the draft in the second round. Your boy Bruce Brown from Miami has been awesome.
Kyrie's not
so there is. No, he hasn't. He looked great in that Utah game. I thought that was a nice little coming out party for him. So that gives me a little bit of hope. And I see where you're going, and I think that kind of goes back to our points about where they're currently positioned. Just 2.5 games back from the 6th seed, can be 1.5 games back after this game on Friday against the Heat. So I definitely see what you're saying, but yeah, we'll wait and see. I mean, we'll find out here within a month. So something's gonna happen.
Fly.
Yeah, let the rumors fly for sure. Well, Shamik, I got nothing else, man. Do you have anything that you wanted to discuss or get out there, or just drop your Twitter handle one more time? Whatever, man.
Just real fast. Now that you've discussed Tom Gores, I think he gets such a bad rap from the people.
I mean, look at the dude.
Oh, okay, but people say like, oh, he shows up drunk to games and this and that. He doesn't show up to many games in Detroit. He only goes to the ones on the West Coast, and the ones he does show up in Detroit, he gets pounded at. So, I mean, like, think about this, David. If you were owner of a basketball team, wouldn't you also get hammered and sit front row and enjoy the product that you put on the floor?
Of course I would. Yeah, exactly. I would be him. Yeah, I would have a better haircut, but I would definitely.
That's a different story.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he gets a bad rap.
He's just funny. It's just funny when he's like that funny uncle you have, He's super, yeah, that rich uncle too. But that one, I mean, it goes back to, when was it? It was like one of Blake Griffin's first games last year, I believe, when there was like an emotional win and he was literally shit-faced on TV. That was, it's just so funny that I don't think that he gets a bad rap as in like he's a meddling bad owner that does really stupid things that's really hurt this franchise. I think he's just easy to poke fun of. Like he's just, I don't know. Yeah, but no, I would be that person too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you make that much money, why wouldn't you get hammered and go to games?
Who cares?
Who cares? Looking all sweaty.
This is a toy to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is his playground.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what these guys do. So no, I don't blame him for any of that stuff.
Exactly.
It's just funny to me.
I just had to get it off my chest since you brought up Tom Gores.
No, it's all good, man. He's the thing that he's paying for us to. Essentially have this not paying us, but he's paying the product. So
this is his universe.
Good. He kept the Pistons in Detroit. So that's something that, there was a very realistic, opportunity for them to be moved after Bill Davidson died and his wife sold the team. So the fact that he kept them here, he moved them downtown, which is something that I wanted. I'm happy with just that in its own right.
Yep. Me too.
All right, man. Well, good talk, Shamik. That was fun. Let them know one more time where to follow you, and I'll get this all, we'll get it up.
Cool. Yeah, you can follow me at ShamShamGod. You can follow my work at Motor City Made. You can listen to more of these hot takes on Two Gods and a Goose. Yeah, that's about it. Definitely subscribe, rate, and review to Two Gods and a Goose and Inside the Cylinder. I have done the same for both. So
my dog. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Of course, Shamik. Yeah, we'll talk again before the season wraps up. Sure. I feel like the halfway mark is a good time to get you on.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, peace.
All right, man. Take care.
I'm just going to hold on for a second and hit the stop broadcast.